Good morning. Just wanted to let you see my almost finished sitting by the Seaside Shawl. And this was done in Caron Big Cakes in the colorway Blue Macaroon. It is gorgeous, and I love the way that the pattern just fans out from the top. It is so soft and so beautiful. Can't really get it all in the picture here, but we are going to be doing a tutorial on this beautiful yet easy, even for a beginner, shawl. So get ready, stay tuned. You will need an H or an I crochet hook if you're going to use the Caron Big Cakes or another 4 medium weight worsted weight acrylic yarn, pair of scissors, and if you'd like, a darning needle or crochet needle to tie in your ends. Okay, so to start this shawl, I am using an eye hook. I am using a Caron Big Cakes in the colorway Shadowberry. It is a number 4 medium worsted weight. They do recommend an H hook. I'm using an I for this tutorial. This has 603 yards. It's machine washable and dryable. 10.5 ounces or 300 grams. Can be obtained different places online, but mainly Michaels.com or in the Michaels store. Okay, so we are going to start with a magic ring. Okay, and if you think a magic ring is hard, I used to think the same thing, but really it's not. So just like if you're going to start a slip knot, I just lay the yarn over palm side, wrap it around my index and middle finger like that, hold on to the ends with my pinky and my ring finger just for stability. I slip my hook in and I grab the back yarn, I pull it under, and now you see that I've got that loop. Okay, you see that I've got that loop right there. Okay, at this point you can go ahead and grab the working yarn that's under your pinky and ring finger and make 2 chains. There's 1 and there's 2. Okay, and if it doesn't show 2, then do a 3rd one, because the one on your hook does not count. Okay, now let go. All right, so go ahead and put your yarn on your hand like you normally do as you're working. And what we are going to do inside the magic ring is we are going to make 2 shells. A shell, for the purposes of this tutorial, is going to consist of 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. That makes a shell. Okay, so let's go ahead and work a shell inside this magic ring. Okay, so we yarn over, we go into the circle, we yarn over, grab that yarn, pull it through the circle. We've got 3 loops on our hook. We yarn over, we'll go through 2, we'll yarn over and go through 2. That is a double crochet. Make 1 more double crochet into the magic ring. I'm not going to be teaching basic stitches in this tutorial because I have another couple videos with basic stitches. Okay, so there's a 2nd double crochet, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets to complete the shell. So here's 1. And when you're first starting, as you see, you got to make sure you find a place to hold onto that magic ring and your work to make it easier for yourself. Because when you very first start out any crochet project, the first few stitches or the first row can, feel a little wonky. Okay, so there we go. We have done our chain 2, we've done 2 double crochets, we've done a chain 1, and then we've done 2 more double crochets, and this has created our first shell. Chain 1 and put another shell inside that magic ring. Okay, so again, that's going to be 2 double crochets, and here is 1, here is 2, oops, 2, get that, there we go, 2, chain 1, and 2 more. There is 1, and the last one inside that ring to complete row 1. Okay, whoops. Okay, so we have completed 2 shells. You can slide your work closer together. See how I've got that loop there? That's because I wasn't holding my yarn tight enough, and I don't like the looks of that. So what you can simply do is, if you have any problems as you're working along, just back up like I did. And I'm not ashamed to show anybody that, because I want my work to look nice. Okay, so, and I've got some fuzzies on here, and I think I was concentrating on the fuzzies and not paying attention like I should. So again, I've got my magic ring. I've got 1 shell. I've already chained 1. I'm going to work another shell, which consists of 2 double crochets. So here's 1 more into that ring. I'm sorry about my cat talking. He is so excited because I let one of my girls downstairs because all her babies have gone to their forever homes. So she's back down in the main part of the house instead of being up with her children. And Ollie is excited to have her back down here to play with. So he's talking away. All right, so we have created our second shell. I'm going to go ahead and slide my work over. So, okay, again, we chained 2 to begin. We did 2 double crochets inside the ring. We did a chain 1, and we did 2 double crochets. That is 1 shell. And we separated the 2 shells with another chain 1, okay? Now we worked another shell in this circle, 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and 2 double crochets. Now grab your tail, and you can go ahead and pull that. You don't have to make it super ultra tight, but you can just snug it up, okay? All right, we are at the end of round 1, and I hope this is focusing correctly. I don't know if it is or not. I just looked up at my TV set. Okay, so now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to turn our work to start round 2. Okay, guys. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started on round 2. Okay, so here is the first shell from round 1. Okay, 2 double crochets, a chain 1 space, 2 double crochets. Every other beginning shell in this pattern and every other ending shell in this pattern will have an increase shell. Okay, so we know a shell consists of 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. To make an increase shell, you're simply going to add an extra chain 1 and 2 more double crochets. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a normal shell in this chain 1 space, which is the middle of the shell from the previous row. Okay, so we'll do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, okay, chain 1, 2 more double crochets in that same space, 1 and 2, okay, that's a regular shell. To do an increase shell, which is going to be in the first space, beginning and ending every other row, we add 1 more chain 1 and 2 extra double crochets. Okay, so it's like a shell and a half. Okay, so that's your increase shell. 3 sets of 2 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 2 chain 1 spaces. Okay, all right. Now, that was done in the chain 1 space of this shell from the previous row. Then we chained 1 in between 2 shells. So we are going to place a shell in this chain 1 space, okay, just in the middle. All right, so go ahead and chain 1, and work a shell in this chain 1 space from the previous row. Just a regular shell. So that is 2 double crochets, chain 1, And I don't know if we're focusing here. And I have a feeling it's because I'm trying to use a board here for a white background, but it's shiny, so I have a feeling it's not working out very well. I've tried all kinds of backgrounds, and either things don't show up, and yeah, this is kind of focusing and then not, okay? So we've got our 2 double crochets, we've got our chain 1, 2 more double crochets to complete that shell in the middle. Okay, so there's the second. All right, so let's chain 1. And we're going to work a shell in the middle of, an increased shell in the middle of the shell from the previous row. Remember, every other row at the beginning always gets an increased shell. So that's like a shell and a half. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets to complete a normal shell. Okay, so there's your normal shell. Sorry, you've got a hair in there or something. Okay, chain 1 and do 2 extra double crochets to create that increased shell. Okay, so we're going to call these beginning and ending shells your border pattern. Okay, so every other row for your border is going to have an increase. We have just completed row 2. Okay, so chain 2, 1, 2, turn your work. Okay, so because we worked an increase the last time, we just worked regular shells inside the chain 1 spaces of your increased shell from the previous row. Okay, oh my, this is not focusing. What is going on? Oh, there we go. Wow. Never had this problem before. Okay, so here's a chain 1 space in the increased shell. Here's your other chain 1 space from the increased shell. So we're going to work a regular shell in each one of those chain 1 spaces. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. And I apologize if we keep going out of focus. I truly believe it's because of this white board that I'm using as a background. May have to stop and put something else down. And for some reason I've got little hairs on here. All right, so here's one shell that I've completed. And this, again, one shell is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. Okay? All right, chain 1. Go to your next shell, which will be considered on the side. Now we're starting to create sides, and then we will have a center spine, okay? So go to the side shell and work a shell in a shell, okay? So that, again, is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets, okay? All right, so we have just done a shell in a shell, chain 1, and now we are in the center spine. Now, as you remember, we did an increase. Shell. Oh no, I apologize. We did a regular shell in the middle. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do an increased shell in the middle of the shell from the previous row. I'm sure that his noise is showing up, or you can hear it very much on this recording, and I apologize for that because I have tried to record this tutorial. This is probably my 4th or 5th time. I don't know where all these little fuzzies came from, but I can't do work when I've got little fuzzies here, so I apologize for that. Okay. So we have just done a regular shell, chain 1, and do 2 more double crochets in this space. Okay, so that's 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. Okay, it's time to unravel my yarn again. Okay. All right, so we are in the middle. We have just done an increased shell. All right. So now we shall move over. I don't know where these fuzzies are coming from. I'm sorry, it's driving me crazy. All right. So now we have an increased shell at the end from the previous row. We're going to work 2 regular shells in each one of these chain 1 spaces. One here and one here. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and you've created that shell. Okay, so we have done our center increased shell. We have done our first shell in the increased shell from the previous row in the first chain 1 space. Work 1 more regular shell in the last chain 1 space from the increased shell from the previous row. So again, that's going to be 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets to complete that shell. Pull out some more yarn here. Okay, so now we have just completed row 3, and this is what your work should look like. Okay, let's chain 2 and turn our work. 1, 2. Okay. I am not a professional. This is not a sponsored channel, guys. I'm not sponsored by any yarn companies at this point in time. So this is just me sharing my love of patterns and fiber arts and other topics. All right, so as you can see, the last row we did just a regular shell. And again, a regular shell, I'll say it one more time, consists of 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and 2 double crochets. Okay? So what we're going to be doing now is an increase, because remember, every other start and every other end, every other row in the beginning and ending shell gets an increase. So we will do an increase shell in this first chain 1 space, okay? So that is going to be 6 double crochets. So there's 2, chain 1, 2 more, there's 1, keep getting these fuzzies. I don't know about you, but I don't like fuzzies when I'm doing work. There's 2, chain 1, and the last 2 to make that increase shell. Okay, there's 1 and there's 2. Now you notice we are chain 1. You notice we are not working in the chain 1 spaces. Okay, the only time that we will ever work in the spaces between shells is in the center spine, and that will be every 3rd row. Okay, so if you look at this, this is going to be, it's going to go 2 shells, 3 shells, increase. 2 shells, 3 shells, increase. That's kind of how the center spine will go. And you'll see that as we move along here. All right, so we just finished our increased shell at the beginning. We go to our side shell and we work a shell in a shell. Okay, so we go in that middle of the shell from the previous row and we work a regular shell of 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. There's 1 and there's 2. Okay, now you'll notice this is your center spine. We did an increase in the last row. So in the increases, we always work a regular shell in each one of these chain 1 spaces. 1 here and 1 here. So go ahead and work a regular shell in each one of those spaces. Okay? So that's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. There's 1 and 2, and we have completed that shell. Chain 1, go to the next chain 1 space inside the shell and work a regular shell. That's 2 double crochets. There's 1, there's 2, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets to complete that regular shell. 1, I'm sorry, my yarn just keeps tangling here. And we'll finish that second one, and we have completed a regular shell. Okay, chain 1. All right, go down to your side shell and work a shell in a shell right in the middle there. And again, that's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, a chain 1. Hope I'm not out of the camera. 1 double crochet in the same space, 2 double crochets, and a chain 1. I'll be so happy when this yarn decides to stop tangling on me. Give me 1 second. Pull some out here. There we go. Hopefully I've got enough pulled out. All right. Okay, so we just completed this shell here. We're going to move down to this chain 1 space, and we are going to be working an increase shell. Okay, so that's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, another 2 double crochets to complete a normal shell, but this is an increase, so we chain 1 and do 2 more double crochets in the same space. 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, turn our work. Okay, so I just want to show you what your work is looking like now. Okay, isn't that pretty? And you can see the center spine forming here. Okay, all right, so since we did an increase, we just do a regular shell in each one of the chain 1 spaces in that increase shell that we just completed. Okay, so put a regular shell in the first chain 1 space, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 1 double crochet, and 2 double crochets. We've completed a normal shell. Always remember, chain 1, go to the next chain 1 space in that increased shell from the previous row, and work a regular shell. So that's 2 double crochets. There's the second one, chain 1 and 2 more. There's 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets. Okay. Now I learned this pattern kind of third hand. I have heard who might possibly have written a pattern like this. I will try and link some written instructions for this. If somebody actually did write a pattern and post it somewhere. I did not purchase a pattern. I know that there's a free pattern that you can get that is similar to this, or maybe almost exactly the same. Maybe it was done by someone called Blue Iguana, but I am not 100% sure. Okay, so here we are. We are on the side shell, and we just did a shell in a shell. Okay, and we are now at the center spine. This is the only time you are going to put a shell in a chain one space between two shells. Okay, so here we have a shell that was put in the increase chain one space from the previous row to this, and the second shell that was put in that other chain one space of the increase from the previous row to it. Okay, so now what we're going to do, this is a shell, so we work a shell and a shell. We work a shell in the actual chain one space between two shells, and we work a shell in a shell. Again, this is the only time when you are going to be working a shell in a chain one space, is every third row on the spine. Okay, so go ahead and work your shell in the shell here, work a shell in the chain one space between these two shells, and work a shell in this shell. work a shell in the shell on the side, and then work a shell in each one of the chain 1 spaces on the ending increase shell from the previous row, and I will meet you when you get done at this point. Okay. I will stay on and you can watch me if you would like. So I'm doing a shell in a shell. Okay. So again, that's going to be 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1. We are in the chain 1 space. We are going to actually put a shell in that middle chain 1 space, just a regular shell. 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And then we are going to move on to the next shell and do a shell in a shell. Chain 1, move on to the next shell and put a shell in a shell. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 1 double crochet, and the last double crochet. As you can see, I've got some tangling going on here. And when you've got something pulling on your tension, it makes you stop because you can't have an even flow of yarn when you're trying to work with that condition. So I just have to keep pulling the tangles out, and I apologize, but sometimes it just happens that way. Okay. All right. So again, we are working along the side. We are going down to the next shell, and we are going to be working a shell in a shell. So that's 1 double crochet. That's 2 double crochets. That's a chain 1 and 2 more double crochets. There's 1. There's 2. Chain 1. Now we're at the increase shell from the previous row. We're going to be working a shell in each one of the chain 1 spaces. That one and that one. Okay. To finish this row. Okay, so here's 1 double crochet. There's 2 double crochets. Chain 1. 1 double crochet. And the last double crochet in that space to complete that shell. Chain 1, move on to the next chain 1 space and put a regular shell in there. And because this row has the regular shells in it, we know that once we turn our work, we're going to be creating an increase shell in the first chain 1 space. Okay, so we have just completed our last shell of this row. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Sorry, I'm out of camera again. 1, 2, and turn our work. Okay. So here's what our work looks like so far. And you can see that we are getting that beautiful triangular shape here. Okay. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit. And my throat's getting dry, so I'm going to grab a sip of coffee and drink a bunch of water. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so we have just completed the increase shell at the end of this row. So you'll chain 2, turn your work, and you know, because this was an increase shell, you put a regular shell in each one of the chain 1 spaces. Okay, so chain 2, turn your work. You're going to put an increase shell in each one of those chain 1 spaces, 1 here, 1 here. You're going to chain 1, do a shell in a shell, chain 1, do a shell in a shell, chain 1, do a shell in a shell, chain 1, and work a shell in each one of the chain 1 spaces of the increased shell in the center spine from the previous row. Shell in a shell, shell in a shell, shell in a shell, and a shell in each one of the chain 1 spaces of the increased shell from the previous row. And you just keep following this pattern over and over and over until you get the size that you are looking for. I really hope that this tutorial has helped you. Do follow the written pattern. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment below and I'll try my best to answer them. And yeah, when I get this finished, I will post a picture probably on Instagram. And again, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Give a thumbs up if you like the tutorial. Again, I'm not a professional channel. I'm just an old gal here having fun and trying to share that fun with you. Have a wonderful day. Hi guys. Before I sign off, I'll let you see that, you know, of course, I'm still working on mine. And my colorway, the Shadowberry, has gone from the gray with the flecks of kind of tealish blue into this beautiful green color. So what I want to show you now, and I apologize because you are going to see some shadows. Let me see if I can keep one hand out of the way. On this particular row right here, this was an increase shell in the center spine. Okay? So for the increase shell, there's 3 sets of 2 double crochets. 1, 2, and this is a chain 1 space. 1, 2, this is a chain 1 space, and the last 2, 1, 2. So when you go to the next row, because there's 2 chain 1 spaces in an increase shell, you put a shell in this chain 1 space, then you chain 1, and you put a shell in this chain 1 space. Okay, so that leaves you with 2 shells. Then when you come up here to the next row, you're going to put a shell in a shell. This is the only time you're going to put a shell in the chain 1 space separating these 2 shells. Okay, so every 3rd row in your center spine, you will be putting a shell in a chain 1 space. Okay, then the row after that, in the center of this shell, you will put an increase shell. Okay, 2 double crochets, a chain 1, 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and 2 double crochets. And that is how the center spine is worked. Okay, and we remember that, let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. We remember that on the ends, every other row, beginning and ending, will have an increase. Okay, so the row before had an increase. This row has 1 shell put into 1 chain 1 space of that increase and another shell put in the 2nd chain 1 space of that increase. Okay, I just love it. I think it's so easy to make, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful pattern. Yeah. So again, any questions, comments, concerns, just go ahead and leave your comments below. And thank you again for watching. I hope you have fun making this shawl. And remember, you are all amazing, just as you are. Bye.